Walton trustees held an administrative hearing on a billing dispute from Lactalis Heritage Dairy on Thursday, November 14th.
Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. Just a couple of things. One thing I'd like to say before we get started, different from last time. That this is going to be that both sides can present to us whatever they want to have, and either side wants to have time to question or make a statement. We'll give it to you. If anybody from the board has a question, we'll allow that, but not going between both parties. During it, this is not a court. This is this is for us for the village hall. This is, and what I already checked on this. We can do it this way. This is not a court where you're going to question each other back and forth like an inquisition. That was wrong last time. I should have stepped in, but you know. This you guys are supposed to present stuff to us so that we can look at it and make a decision. If we have any questions, we could ask both sides any questions we may have, and then we'll get back to you in reasonable time. We'll give you time to your response to whatever you got, and then we can give you a decision.
May I ask a point of clarification?
Sure.
So the village's position at this point is no questions asked by LHD or Lactalis Heritage Dairy to Cedarwood.
And vice
versa. So any questions in this hearing will be issued from the board to either Lactalis Heritage or Cedarwood.
Or you guys can ask us any questions. Whatever if we can answer, we will. You know, I mean, I think that's fair for both sides. And with that said, I guess we'll let you go first. How's that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the village board for having us again this evening. My name is Jacob Sonner. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Phillips Lytle. We are counsel for Lactalis Heritage Dairy, which obviously operates the dairy plants in the village of Walton. Before we get started, I just want to hand out, I actually have two copies this time instead of just the one, the letter that was sent requesting the review that we're here to talk about today. And would offer that into evidence for the purposes of this hearing. I appreciate Mr. Mayor, your clarification about the way that the proceedings will be held today. I would like to state, however, a formal objection on behalf of Lactalis to the format of those proceedings. As this proceeding has been described as an administrative hearing, it's Lactalis's position that it should be afforded a full and fair opportunity to address and cross-examine, frankly, any evidence that's presented in support of the July wastewater treatment bill that has been the subject of this request for review. As the board is aware, Lactalis was afforded something of that opportunity at the last administrative hearing. And it's disappointing, frankly, that the village is now taking that opportunity away from Lactalis, particularly where there has been no opportunity in advance for Lactalis to see, review, address the evidence that apparently Cedarwood intends to submit today. So with that being said, there's no point belaboring it. The village board has made its determination, but I wanted to make that objection clear for the record.
And we'll give you plenty of time to look at what Cedarwood had presented and to give a, what do you want to call it, an answer or your statement on it.
Well, that does beg the question then, if there is information presented for the first time today by Cedarwood with respect to the July bill. I'm not asking the village board for an opportunity to address the May and June bill that are already fully submitted to the board. But if there's something presented today by Cedarwood that's new, is it the village board's position that Lactalis would then have a certain discrete amount of time, not an unreasonable amount of time,
right,
but a period of time to
right,
respond in
course.
writing?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, no, I would say roughly about 10 days. That should be fair. Not a whole month. I think that would be fair enough.
Understood. And all I would ask is at the conclusion of today's hearing, we just set whatever that date is. We set it so that there's no mystery for the sides. Okay. A few points of background before I get started in talking about the July bill that we're here to talk about today. I think we're all very familiar with where things stand presently with the village of Walton and Lactalis Heritage Dairy. Lactalis has filed an Article 78 proceeding in state Supreme Court challenging the entirety of the billing scheme as it is being imposed by the village. and it has subsequently challenged 3 specific wastewater treatment bills. May, June, May 2024, June 2024, and the reason we're here to talk about today, or the thing we're here to talk about today, the July 2024 bill. As I mentioned in the last hearing, those specific bill challenges are without prejudice to Lactalis's request for relief in the state Supreme Court with respect to the entirety of the wastewater billing scheme. These challenges are narrowly targeted at certain specific issues that Lactalis has identified in each of those wastewater treatment bills, and those issues are carefully spelled out in the submissions that have been made to the village board. And just to kind of recap what those are. The first issue that Lactalis has identified is the billing for greater than 100% of the total biochemical oxygen demand being treated at the wastewater treatment plant. That issue first cropped up, at least for the purposes of the bills we've been talking about, in June. It has now repeated itself in July for the July wastewater treatment bill. The second issue is a multi-part issue, but it really relates to the additional charges that are set forth in each of the wastewater treatment bills, May, June, and July, and the lack of any evidence substantiating their connection to Lactalis, and the lack of any evidence substantiating the actual costs that make up those bills. As the village board is aware, after the last hearing, it presented or gave Cedarwood, the contractor that operates the wastewater treatment plant, the opportunity to submit some additional information justifying or explaining either of these 2 particular issues, either the greater than 100% of the total BOD, or I suppose, the total additional charges. And what we now know from Cedarwood's submission is that there really is no explanation for how Lactalis could be billed for greater than 100% of the total BOD. No explanation provided by Cedarwood. In fact, the only information that we now know, or has been supplemented, is the potential for the village having been using the wrong metric as its coefficient for BOD. We don't know how long that's been going on, but that seems to be Cedarwood's conclusion, or at least what they're speculating. And that seems to be borne out, by the way, in some of the lab testing. So, again, we don't know how long this has been going on, but it appears that the village has not only been billing Lactalis for greater than 100% of the total BOD being treated at the wastewater treatment plant, it's also been using the wrong metric as the coefficient for establishing that charge. We also know from Cedarwood's response in connection with the May and June bills that Lactalis has in fact been subsidizing the costs of to operate the wastewater treatment plant. And we know that because Cedarwood has now admitted that they have been billing or asking the village to bill Lactalis for employees working during their regular business hours. Beyond that, the response that Cedarwood submitted for May and June is entirely without support for those additional charges, whether it's the coagulant chemicals, the additional manpower, the additional lab testing, nothing besides just speculation that these costs are associated with Lactalis's operations. And our supplement, our reply, if you will, to Cedarwood's response sets forth all that in full. But I think it was important to rehash that because the issues that we're here to discuss today are the very same ones that we talked about for the May and June bill. And let's start with the biochemical oxygen demand. Again, for the July bill, we have a claim by the village that it can bill Lactalis for greater than 100% of the total BOD being treated at the wastewater treatment plant for the month of July. The total wastewater treatment plant BOD for the month of July, according to Cedarwood and according to the village's bill, was around 2,200 pounds per day. That same bill says that Lactalis is responsible for sending approximately 2,400 pounds per day to the wastewater treatment plant. It's not possible, can't happen, right? One or the other, but it's gotta be less than the total. That's the bottom line. The additional charges on the July wastewater bill also find no support on the bill itself. So we've got $20,000 billed for additional coagulant chemicals. No explanation tying those chemicals to Lactalis's discharge. No explanation justifying their cost. $2,300 in additional manpower. Again, no explanation for what that additional manpower was. Nothing tying that additional manpower to Lactalis's operations. And finally, $1,600 approximately in additional lab testing. same thing goes. Nothing tying that additional lab testing to Lactalis' operation, and nothing justifying the cost. The problem with all of this, and I don't want to repeat too much of what was said at the last hearing, but the problem with all of this is the final question I posed to you when we were all here in September, which was, ask yourselves whether the wastewater bills as they're submitted are actually a representation of what it costs on a O&M basis to treat Lactalis' discharge, or whether Lactalis is simply being asked to subsidize the cost of the wastewater treatment plant. We now know two things. Number one, that is exactly what's happening. Cedarwood admitted it to you in their response. They told you that they included in their billing time for employees on the clock. We don't know how long that's been going on, but now we know that that's the case. So, in fact, Lactalis is subsidizing at least a portion of the cost of the wastewater treatment plant, unassociated with the actual cost to treat Lactalis' wastewater. The second thing we know is that there is no explanation. There can be no explanation for how it's possible for the village to bill Lactalis for greater than 100% of the total BOD. There's no answer for it, because it can't be true. It can't happen. It's not logical. So I left you with a question last time, and I'll leave you with another one today. And that's simply, if the village were to receive a bill like Lactalis is receiving from the village, what would it do? If it asked for additional backup information and it didn't receive it, or there was no justification for certain line item charges, would the village pay those? I think we all know the answer is no. I think we all know the answer is no. And Lactalis is respectfully asking that it be treated fairly, that the actual costs associated with treating its wastewater be what it contributes to the wastewater treatment plant. And accordingly, we're going to ask for refunds at the conclusion of all this, because as we've seen already, we're entitled to refunds. Lactalis is entitled to refunds for the amount it overpaid. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you, Cedarwood, do you have anything that you'd like to say?
Yeah, yeah, let's go through quick, I guess.
We'll be handing them out.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and hand them out?
Go ahead.
Yeah. He's gonna hand out our response for July. Like I said, a lot of stuff is kind of same for May and June. The BOD billing, yes, it was over 100%, the billing. That was an error in the spreadsheet. It's not a formula issue, it's not a coefficient issue, it's a formula in the spreadsheet that was messed up. It should have caught it. We're gonna correct it. So we corrected that. So for July, you guys were at 91%, I believe, 92% rather than 112. So that's been taken care of. Now that's assuming we're doing BOD to BOD. We still don't have the lab method that's being used on in-house testing, but we'll assume it is for now. If we can get what you're actually testing for lab, the method, that'd be great. But we'll go with that for now. So that's a credit. As far as the manpower, we are contracted with the village and really the DEP in a sense, you know, to run that facility. If we have to do stuff like running out sampling, coming in, adjusting chemicals based on Lactalis discharge, yes, we're at the plant, but that's time that's taken away from other stuff we have to do. And we agreed to take that off because we are on the clock, we're there, but it's additional tasks above and beyond what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be there to treat, you know, compliant wastewater from both the village and Lactalis. We're not there to, hey, we're getting a load of this, we don't know what's going on, all right, we gotta go and increase the chemical, hey, you know, there's additional stuff that has been going on more since Lactalis took over that we have to, it just takes time. Yeah, if we're there during the day, we gotta deal with it, right? And it takes us away from other tasks we have to do. You know, we scramble or, you know, we gotta do extra. So, but we agreed to take off, if the guys are there, we agreed to take off that time, but any call-ins, any overtime, or if we had to do something during the day and we have to stay late, we think that's fair to bill that. And personally, I think it's fair to bill if we have to do stuff that's above and beyond our contract, related to Lactalis, I think that's fair, but we crossed that off, so we adjusted that. It's only for the stuff that was billed. In addition, for any overtime call-ins, out of our stuff, that's what we adjusted that to, and that's in this right up here. As far as the chemical usage, There's a long explanation in here. John put it together. It's very well done. We set the baseline chemical for 130 gallons a day. That's assuming normal discharge, normal strength from the Walton, really normal from Lactalis. It's only when we cross that 130 gallon a day threshold, that we bill extra chemical on. And we know that because during true shutdowns, which is highlighted in this document, during true shutdowns, the chemical drops. It does every time. Now, I know there's been more what we call mild shutdowns, or we get hit with a lot of loading, then it shuts down for a while, and the chemical doesn't go down like it used to. That's different. That's not a true shutdown. So when we go back to the true shutdowns, and that's the chemical. That's what we use for chemical. The chemical drops, so that's what our baseline is set up. It's explained in here. You guys can read it much better than I can explain it speaking, but the response is in there. So we think we should hold firm on that one. And then the additional lab testing, we did itemize what the additional sampling for BOD, COD, TKN, oil and grease. Anytime there's something coming in, that is related to Lactalis, we have the cost, the quantities, the cost per test, the total cost. It's all transparent. So we provide backup for everything. That's all I have, unless somebody has questions. Yeah.
A brief response, if I may. And I haven't had a chance to review this, obviously, and I understand we'll be given it. I appreciate that from the village board. What I would say is, and what I anticipate the response, or at least part of our response will be, is when Cedarwood says, we're entitled to charge this because it's related to Lactalis, or I believe Mr. Suazo's quote was, it's because it's all based on Lactalis's discharge. The assumption that every time that there's an additional cost or some issue at the plant, the assumption that it automatically must be Lactalis is an assumption that finds no support in any evidence that I've seen today. So they can say that, and they can assert it, but the fact of the matter is that Lactalis is the only user of the wastewater treatment plant that they have the discretion to say, we can charge these additional amounts. So when they say it must be Lactalis, go back to why, or think why that might be the case. And remember again, that Lactalis is the only one that they can make these, or levy these additional charges on. So if it's something else, if there's some other cause, and it's not Lactalis, they don't have any ability to pass that cost on to any other individual user except Lactalis. So ask yourselves, is the information that they provide, is that enough to get to the point where they're gonna say, or they can claim that it must be Lactalis? I haven't seen anything like that today.
Okay. Does anyone on the board have to ask any questions? Anybody first, if you have anything you want to say?
Just a general question, because it's come up, and it's the subject that relates to the testing facility, the need to want a testing facility that all parties can access with possible third-party additive to it. What's Lactalis's position on having such a testing sampling facility that all parties can access?
Lactalis currently has a testing facility. I'm probably not the best person to answer this, but I'm also not gonna let my colleagues here answer the question in this form. It's probably best to have it with Mr. Cortez and I,
Right.
off the public record, so to speak.
Okay.
But my understanding, just at a high level, is Lactalis does have testing data available to Cedarwood. Makes it available on a daily basis.
I don't think that's what he
There's a
was saying.
sampling station.
He was saying that it would be nice if we had a sampling station that both parties could use, probably on our property, because then you could have 24-hour access, because wherever we have it has to have 24-hour access. And the other thing he was talking about was maybe having a third party that would take the samples from both of us, so there would be no discretion and no concern about the validity of everything that's done. So it's just, you can respond later on.
Understood. And what I would say to that is there is already a neutral party testing both the samples at the wastewater treatment plant and testing the samples that Lactalis is taking. And that was agreed upon with Cedarwood. Phoenix Labs is doing that and continues to do it.
No, I meant actually taking the sample, not coming to pick it up. I mean, actually going and taking that sample that the lab gets. It wouldn't have to be Phoenix, but it could be a third party that would come in and take from them, yes, I'm sorry.
Finish
Take
your thought, I just have
from Cedarwood and then take from you at the same time. This way, everybody would have the same kind of sample at the same time. It's just a layperson thinking about it.
I understand the village's position. I'm not prepared to respond to where we are today.
It's just a thought, so.
But I think it should be the subject of further discussions down the road. Perhaps I would suggest through the parties' attorneys, because I understand that has been the topic of conversation previously, and it doesn't seem like there's been any headway made. So I think it's best to leave it there.
Anything else?
No, I think just finding ways to have an equitable approach to solving this problem. You know, we recognize that Lactalis employs a lot of people, and you know, we need to have an equitable solution for everyone. So appreciate your response. That's it.
Yes.
Just a brief response. On the testing,
I'm sorry, sir. Could you just introduce yourself so that the record's clear?
okay, John Moffett with Cedarwood. They're not reporting all their BODs from Phoenix. Number one, because Phoenix is not doing 7 days a week. They are reporting 7 days a week BOD, which must be in-house testing. So that's a number that we need to look at because that's not on their sheets. If you look at the Phoenix numbers, because we do get their Phoenix numbers, but the monthly report, wastewater report from them does not have those numbers all on there. Vice versa.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything they want to say? Steve?
Well, I worked over there for 17 years. I lost my voice. And truthfully, there's nothing else in this community that's gonna cause the problems over there that Kraft did and probably like Dallas is doing now. I mean, you can see it. I mean, I've lived it. And like the guy said about coming in nights, weekends, doing extra work, running around, it's crazy over there when there's a spill or if there's something going on, and it doesn't stop quick. A quick analogy of the wastewater treatment plant's like a person. What comes in, it gets separated. If it gets upset, if you get an upset stomach, it can last a day, it can last 2 days. It's a living, breathing thing over there. And what gets dumped over there is, sometimes it's a big mess. It's a big mess.
Just a few points, if I could. First, in response to Mr. Moffat's question, or statement rather, the daily sampling that Lactalis does has all of the BOD information 7 days a week. So maybe the Phoenix data is only 5 days a week, but the in-house testing is all 7. And Mr. Condon, in response to your point, I hear you loud and clear. My response, sir, only would be that 50% of all the wastewater being treated at the plant is coming from unknown sources. That's number one. Number two, there are other industrial users of the site. If I could finish, sir. Including runoff and leachate from nearby landfills and other dairies, other farms. So what I would ask you, sir, is to keep an open mind when you're looking at the bill and not simply assume that it can only be Lactalis, because that's what Cedar would have you believe and would have you assume. But when it comes down to paying for something and charging somebody for something, you gotta have more. You gotta have evidence, and you gotta show that it's related to Lactalis, because if there's no evidence, like I said earlier, what would the village, if there was a claim by one of your vendors that you owed money, and it could only be the village that's causing this charge, you'd ask for more than simply the statement that it's gotta be you, it's gotta be the village. You'd ask for more.
Just for that, years ago, we did do more. We put samplers through the whole village to see where other stuff was coming. There was nothing coming. Not saying that it hasn't changed now, but I can't imagine something being that much flow.
How many years ago, if I could ask?
Oh, gosh. I guess ask John, can you remember how many years ago that was we did that? It was quite a while. I've been out of the business 8 years, 10 years.
I would say about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I was here. That it, Steve? Yes. I just have a couple thoughts, not against it right now. I remember when Kraft was here, I would say about maybe 10, 12 years ago, we had a similar issue with the coloring of the water, turning green and everything, and we had gone back and forth between both of us, banging our heads saying what it could be, and Kraft said, it can't be us, we're not doing it, and we said, it's not us, we're not doing anything. And what it came up was the membrane, you know what I'm talking about, right? The oral membranes of other tanks. They're very expensive to change, but we suggested that they change it, and then Kraft came up and actually did change them after a while, and a lot of the water cleared up within a week. So I don't know, I'm not saying that is the reason, but I don't know, maybe that's something to look into, I don't know. But I know that was one of our big issues. And the second thought that I have is, Kraft used to have a bunch of spills, which is normal, I think, in a big operation like that. But it seems that, and I used to get notification of that, it seems like we don't have any more spills that much anymore. I don't know if it's just that everything's been so cleaned up that it don't have them anymore, but I'm just curious about that. Because sometimes if you have a spill, if you don't notify the plant, that could cause heavy issues too, so. And I'm not saying that's all it was, it's just something, that's a layperson question here.
I think, I do wanna be careful about addressing the situation
Yeah.
generally between,
Yeah.
at the plants, both the dairy and also the wastewater treatment plant, because I think that the scope of what we're here to talk about today is really just the bill.
Yeah, okay.
But I do think that these are the type of conversations that would be helpful to have if in the context of the scheme as a whole.
Right, yeah, as a whole, I mean, because we're here, we don't get a chance to talk to each other like this all the time. It's not me personally, I feel that the sampling station could be an answer for some of the problems that we're having. I feel that way. And if everybody could get it and we do our sampling, then maybe we could talk another way of billing. I know you would like to do price per pound or something like that. If we could get this sampling thing down, that we knew everything was at the same time together, then maybe we could go and talk about something like that as well. Just an oversight of mine. I mean, something I was thinking about, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else have anything you want to say?
I have a question.
Yes,
Who's the other industrial user in the village?
we don't have one, not that I know
There's no other dairies hooked in it or anything, correct?
of, no. We don't have it,
So the 50% other unknowns is basically domestic or,
we don't have, I don't know of any
right,
other dairy companies coming here. I mean,
there's no other significant industrial user in
No.
this community.
Not even, you know.
If I could respond.
Yeah, sure, you can.
Well, first of all, Sunrise Farms trucks in wastewater, so that's,
Sunrise?
They haven't been here in years.
In years.
Yeah, no.
The last time they were here was like, Joey, how long ago was that?
15?
7, 8 years ago?
Yeah, at least 10 years
At
ago.
least 10 years, that's before
So,
Lactalis came here. And they would come once in a while, we had made an agreement, but they haven't been here in quite a long time, quite honestly.
and then the other point I would make is the idea that there are no other industrial users. Is that simply because the village hasn't categorized anyone as another industrial user?
Well,
Because
we had an engineer go to all the locations where there could be anything, and there was none. You know, we checked at the schools, we checked at Empire Metal Works over there, we checked at the hospital. There are no industrial things that come through there, so we're kind of limited to what we have as far as industrial in the village. We don't have.
and the village, the wastewater treatment does accept leachate from landfills though, right?
That's correct.
One landfill.
Which one?
One.
Which
Delaware
landfill?
County.
Yeah, yeah.
Delaware County.
And-
County landfill.
And just to throw this on the table, being that it's dry, we haven't seen leachate in about a month and a half. So no inflow from that. Maybe we took 2 loads in, or 3 loads last month.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll ask the question of the board
Yeah,
instead,
please,
to
yeah,
respect
yeah.
the rules.
Thank you.
But a month and a half ago, that's after July.
That's after July. No,
The July date.
Correct.
Got it, okay.
And then, I guess the only other question I would have is, when the analysis was done about whether the village has any other industrial users, was there a report provided to the village with respect to that analysis?
I'm trying to remember. Jody, you would know that. I'll speak, I think it was Bill Brown from Delaware Engineering that did it. I will look into it, and if there was, I'll make sure you get a copy of it. Or I'll find out when it was done.
I won't, with all due respect, Mr. Mayor, I won't even ask you to do that. What I would prefer to do, frankly, is we'll submit a FOIL request and go
Oh,
through the proper
okay.
channels, that way
Okay,
it's
all right,
all.
not a problem. Okay, very good, excellent. Anyone else have anything to say? If not, I will say thank you for your submission, and, 10 days. You wanna make it 10 business days? Is that a-
Yeah, I was gonna say, Mr. Mayor, would you mind terribly if it was 14 days total to give us the,
Yeah.
so we don't go over
I'm
two
not
weekends
gonna,
there. And there's a holiday in there
Yes,
too.
there's a holiday coming up here, so,
If we could have it before the board meeting, that would be better.
for December. What date you, oh, it's,
when is it, December, when's that? Huh?
December 2nd.
December 2nd.
Yeah,
And of course, that's the Monday after the holiday. If we could, I know this is asking a lot, but if we could have till the 27th. I know that doesn't give you a whole lot of time before the board meeting on the 2nd.
27th of November?
Yeah, it's just shy of 2 weeks, Mr. Mayor.
All right, yeah, we can do it, we'll make it work.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and we'll get that, as soon as we get the result, we'll get back to you, okay? Thank you for coming.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
all for your time.
Have a good night.
To subscribe or advertise, call 607-464-4009.